Have you ever had to look injustice square in the face and struggled to know how to handle it? You would think in today's world we would, as a society, have a better handle on discrimination and oppression, but it is still all around us. How do we handle injustice? How did it affect who we are as individuals? That is exactly what the characters ask themselves in the books I'm going to talk to you about today. All three books have characters that have dealt with holding their true selves back as they try to fit into a society that they are not sure they even want to be part of. All three books examine, in their own way, the impact of racial discrimination and injustices facing people of color every day. These books range from fantastical to realistic fiction, but their message is very much real. The first book, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, is at first glance a tale of magic and adventure. It is a story of a people, the Magi, who were once able to wield magic, yet because of this power, they were ultimately repressed and their magic was stricken from them. At closer look, the story mirrors the current American climate of what it means to be a person of color. In an interview with NPR, the author Adeyemi discussing the main character states, Zelie is defiant and strong, but sometimes her fear and self-doubt get the better of her. Tomi Adeyemi says to write about this fear, she drew on her experience of being Black in America in a time of high-profile police shootings of unarmed Black men. She states, because this book, while it is an epic high fantasy, is about living in a society that teaches you to hate what makes you magical. This is a story that will have you caught up in a fantastical creatures and magical powers, but at its heart is a story about a girl discovering who she is in the face of adversity. Who she is in standing up for her culture and her people under oppression. Who she is while figuring out her feelings for the prince son of the oppressor, King of Orisha. This is the first book of a trilogy to come, and I guarantee you will want to read more. Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi will be an adventure, but better yet, a reflection on standing up to a broken society that you will not want to miss. The second book, Dear Martin by Nic Stone, is a book that also has its main character personally reflecting the injustice in society. This, however, is a work of contemporary fiction, dealing with some of the issues that Adeyemi had mentioned as a basis for her fantastical epic. Justice examines the current state of affairs and his own stance on life through the lens of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. The main character, Justice, has studied the teachings of Martin Luther King Jr. He writes letters to Dr. King in order to try and understand how he should act and feel as he personally faces injustice and then has to deal with the pain of loss, police brutality, and further discrimination. Justice is caught between two worlds. The first is his home where he grew up and where his mother still lives. A world where being in a gang is just a way to survive. The second world is one of privilege, where the other students attending his elite private school can't comprehend the adversity Justice faces on a daily basis. Things get complicated as he falls for a white girl from his prep school that he knows his mother will not accept. Justice struggles to find balance and his place in the world. Dear Martin by Nic Stone is a powerful coming-of-age story about a boy embarking on adulthood, finding his voice in the face of discrimination. The third book is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. Much like Dear Martin, this is a story where the main character is caught between two worlds. She, like Justice, lives with her family in a neighborhood where gang life is for some the only way to survive. She also attends a privileged, predominantly white school where she struggles to find herself. Star, the main character, has two personas, one for each of her worlds. Her two personas are forced to merge when she is the only witness to her best friend Khalil's murder by a cop. She has to decide if she is going to be able to risk her life and her family's to stand up for Khalil. This is a book about racial injustice that highlights how African Americans are unfairly targeted by law enforcement. Like Justice in Dear Martin, Star's romantic interest in the book is white, subject to the disapproval of her father. She has to merge her worlds to find herself and figure out how best to face adversity and oppression, at the same time navigating her relationships with her family and her friends from both worlds. The title of the book is inspired from Tupac Shakur's definition of thug life. The hate you give little children F's everyone. The message is that if children are continued to be brought up in an environment surrounded by violence, by racism, and by oppression, the cycle will continue. Star and Khalil talk about this before he's killed, and she has to figure out how she can adapt this philosophy as she navigates through the world. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas is a powerful and important book that addresses racism in a way that will make you want to figure out how you can make positive change. We live in a world where people are still being discriminated and oppressed because of the color of their skin. Discrimination hurts everyone, not just the people being discriminated against. Like Adeyemi wrote, it teaches people to hate what makes them magical. We need to value diversity in others, to accept each other's differences and revere the magic in each other. These 3 books, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, Dear Martin by Nick Stone, and The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas are all explorations in finding oneself and fighting for justice in a world full of oppression, but also full of possibilities.